You're tuned in to the Bleav in Arizona podcast. Hello, Bear Down Believers, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Matt Reynoldson, and what a night it is to be talking about the Arizona Wildcats, the signature first win of the Brent Brennan era, a 23-10 victory over Utah in Salt Lake City. The Cats knocking off a top 10 team on the road. And how about that? Defensive domination by the Wildcats, magic from Noah Fifita to Cario Davis. We'll talk about it all. We'll go through the stats. We'll go through how this magical night in Salt Lake played out. But first, I want to remind you to please subscribe to the podcast over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to me on YouTube at Matt_Reynoldson. And one more thing. You may notice my Arizona red hat tonight. That's brought to you by Melon Hats, who's one of our sponsors on this great program. And these hats are incredible. Just got my first ones this week and got them in the mail, and they are so versatile. They are whatever you want for your lifestyle. You can wear them working out. I wore mine to the pool today. You know, it's something that'll fit your lifestyle, super durable. They don't stink. So if you have hats, if you have golf hats that hold that smell a little bit more than you'd probably like to, these hats are for you. They don't hold the smell. They are perfect for any stage of your lifestyle. And obviously, as you can see here, they are clean enough, structurally sound, and great to just do anything in your lifestyle and really, be maybe a little bit more than just your casual hat, be something that you can dress up, dress down. Melon Hats. Go to melin.com and get your Melon hat today. All right. How about that? This is the Bleav in Arizona postgame podcast, and we have got so much to talk about from this game because that was an electric performance for the Wildcats. Let's just go through it spot by spot because, these guys played the game that you would have hoped for after 15 days of prep, especially after the way things went in Manhattan, Kansas 2 weeks ago, a 31-7 loss at the hands of the Kansas State Wildcats. Things were not looking good in Tucson for the past 2 weeks. The energy was off. The mood was sour. People were questioning the coaching staff. People were questioning the defense, the leadership on this team, the wide receivers outside of obviously Tetairoa McMillan, the offensive play calling. Everything seemed to have a bit of a microscope. And with basketball starting next week, people were sort of peering over the fence into crossover season. Okay, if you take a second loss in September, should you just be looking forward to basketball season? And Arizona football went into Salt Lake City, a notoriously brutally tough place to play. And they said, nope, keep that spotlight on us. We are a ranked team. We're going to play like it. And they did. And they went and knocked off a top 10 Utah team. Prefacing this, obviously, Cam Rising did not play in this game. Isaac Wilson did lead Utah to a win on the road last week at Oklahoma State, did lead Utah to a win against Baylor a couple weeks ago in a non-conference game, but still a Big 12 opponent, still a power conference opponent that you got to face. So it was his third career start against Arizona, but this was by far the most uncomfortable he looked. And I want to start off by talking about really a feather in the cap performance for Arizona's defense, because this was Desert Swarm quality defense. This was exactly what the 90s looked like. In all my film review I've done of those incredible Arizona defenses in the 1990s, this is what it looked like. It felt like. That is legitimate defense. And it was led by perhaps Arizona's best defensive player in Cario Davis. 7 tackles, 5 pass breakups, forced a couple interceptions by other guys, did not actually come down with one in and of himself, but he was a monster in coverage all day long. So let's start kind of chronologically at the beginning of this one, because it was really a pretty epic performance by Arizona, especially on defense in this game. So the first drive for Utah was a 13-play, 64-yard drive that marched all the way inside the Arizona 10-yard line. And what does Arizona do? Well, it stuffs up Utah on fourth down and short near the goal line. and turns them over on downs. So that was inside the 10-yard line, just inside the 10-yard line. Arizona got the turnover on downs, got a big stop on the ground against that big, burly, tough Utah offensive line, and made an early statement. So a nice response for Arizona's offense, even starting in the shadow of their own goal line, even with 90 yards from the end zone. They drive 60 yards in 9 plays, get a Tyler Loop field goal. And if you watch any other college football today, that Tyler Loop field goal showed you exactly what Arizona has at kicker, an All-American, and how important it is to be able to finish these drives with 3 points, especially against a defense like Utah's when those are so hard to come by. So the second drive really showed me, this second Utah drive really showed me that this was going to be a different performance for Arizona's defense, and that bend, don't break, something that we hear a lot, something that can be kind of concerning if you are an avid watcher of defensive football, is going to be a legitimately usable philosophy for this Arizona defense. That's because Utah drove another double-digit play drive, another 60-plus yard drive. This one, 10 plays, 73 yards, this time inside the 5-yard line, and they throw it to the end zone. Tacario Davis, big pass breakup in the end zone, and Arizona holds twice inside their own 10-yard line, 2 turnovers on downs inside their own 10-yard line to hold Utah off the scoreboard on their first 2 drives. 23 plays, no points to show for it for Utah. So Arizona was not going to score on every drive in this game. That was the hope coming in, of course, but against a defense like Utah and a front 7, especially like Utah, you're not going to be able to have the balance. You're not going to be able to really be able to stay on schedule with your drives to be able to get 6 every drive. This one was not the best drive of the day. One of 3 drives for Arizona, the half not included, that were 3 plays and out. Unfortunate drive, but got 8 yards out of it, only a minute and a half time of possession. So not exactly what you want up 3-0. They punt it right back to Utah. That's it for that second drive. So 2 drives each team at that point. The third drive was the real stake in the ground for Arizona, as well as this game started to take shape early on in the second quarter. Now, granted, when Arizona got their field goal to open this game, Utah had churned 6 minutes and 39 seconds off the clock on their opening drive. Arizona, minute 48. So this was already past the halfway point of the first quarter when Arizona took that 3-0 lead, and then Utah chewed up a bunch more time on the second drive, 11:27. So with Utah getting no points out of their first 2 drives, they really put themselves in a tough spot, because when you control clock like that and when you have time of possession like that, you need to get points out of it, because if you don't, you're really working against yourself. You're using the clock against yourself as opposed to using it in your favor, which Utah is so used to doing. So the third drive, they drove again all the way inside the Arizona 5-yard line. And this time, Arizona stood up once again. Utah said, no, we're not going to make the same mistake 3 times. We're not getting shut out on 4th down 3 drives in a row. We'll take the chip shot field goal. There's that 3-3. How does Arizona respond after that? I think this was its best drive of the day. Now, we'll get to the second half drive in a little bit, where Noah Fifita had absolute magic. I think that was probably the most crucial drive of the day for Arizona, but this one was the best drive of the day. And I want to go through so many of the things that made this drive special for Arizona. If I can get to it on this play chart right here, the most impressive thing about that second quarter drive for Arizona was that they dominated the run game. So started off with a complete pass to Tedero McMillan for 13 yards, then back to T-Mac again. So you got 20 yards on those first couple plays. Again, starting at your own 25, good. That gets you out to midfield. Now you can establish the run game. And what did they do? Kedrick Risano run to the left for 8 yards. That's staying on schedule on first down. Then Risano up the middle for 36 yards. Quick pass from Noah again, and then Quali Conley up the middle, and then Noah Fifita into Jeremiah Patterson for the touchdown. Arizona marched this drive off, and Kedrick Risano was so huge in that drive and establishing the run in the first half for Arizona against a team that just doesn't give up a lot of rush yards and certainly doesn't give up a lot of yards per carry with this defense. So Utah's defense on their heels late in the first half. Arizona takes a 10-3 lead. Then the defense shows up yet again. Let's go back to the drive chart here. Defense shows up yet again. And at Utah's next drive, 3 plays, 1 yard, punt immediately. Arizona gets the ball back. Craftily calls its timeouts. Brent Brennan showing his ability to manage the clock a little bit there. So Arizona gets the ball back with a chance to build on a 1-score lead heading into halftime. They can't ultimately do it. They go to halftime with a 10-3 lead, but you have to feel good about that if you're an Arizona fan. And, just buckle up for the second half because you're in a heavy crowd environment, a raucous environment in Salt Lake City, and against a team that's used to winning at home, and against a team that's used to winning close games and getting in 4-quarter dogfights, and an extremely well-coached team with Kyle Whittingham on the sidelines. But the thing that works in Arizona's favor is they know if they get a 2-score lead, they can really put a lot of mental, physical, and scheme pressure on a true freshman quarterback in Isaac Wilson. This is not Cam Rising back there. Wilson has shown he's a good quarterback, has shown he has a bright future, obviously has the pedigree being the brother of NFL quarterback Zach Wilson, but this was about putting the mental pressure truly on a true freshman quarterback in a big spot to come back and dig his team out of a hole in the second half. So what does Arizona do to start the second half? Well, limiting Utah to this is the third quarter. So limiting Utah to a 4-play drive, 15 yards, and getting a punt out of it. That's exactly how they started the second half in the K-State game. But this time, Arizona actually took advantage of it in the second half. Now, the teams traded punts here a little bit, but the big thing was Arizona learning how to get the ball advanced and really get the ball into the hands of their defensive players. I mean, let's look at some of these defensive charts here. Arizona's defense was off the charts, led in tackles by Tay Brown with 10 total tackles, Jacob Manu with 8, Dalton Johnson with 8, Takario Davis with 7, and 5 pass breakups. That's an incredible number. If you track PBUs, that is an incredible number for Takario Davis. But the interceptions went to Genesis Smith, which was a huge one in the red zone, and then Gunnar Maldonado closing it out with an interception as well. So Arizona winning the turnover battle, that was super important there. But I think what kind of took shape in the second half was that third quarter drive in which Arizona was able to take a 13-3 lead and really put the pressure on Utah. And then you saw Wilson really start to press a little bit. And Arizona avoided a little bit of a turnover possibility, bobbled ball. They overturned it by review. The defensive lineman had it, but never really had it on his way down. And so Arizona avoids a potential disaster in that spot, but ends up going up 16-3. And then the pressure is really on Wilson. 16-3 lead at the end of the first quarter. You got to feel really good about that, especially because Arizona had the ball at that point. The defense was swarming all over the place, really holding down this Utah offense. But you knew there was going to be one last gasp for this Utah team. And that came with a really quick drive that started on the Utah 20-yard line and ended in the end zone. Isaac Wilson started it with a 5-yard complete pass. That was something that kept him on schedule. Incomplete pass. Then the third down conversion right up the middle to Brant Kuithe, his tight end and his safety valve, his great reliable target right there. Really got the drive on schedule. Got a 37-yard pass down the middle for Dorian Singer, and then another complete pass to the tight end. Caleb Lohner beat Emmanuel Carnley on that play, and that was really the only lapse of the game by Arizona's defense. So you saw some signs of life with Utah. And then there was this weird sequence after the ensuing kickoff where Arizona got a big return. There was a holding penalty, but the officials discussed the holding penalty for an exorbitant amount of time. And the student section was just going wild. Things were bearing down, not to use the term, but bearing down on Arizona in that spot. The crowd is going insane. There's movement up front on the first down play. The officials get together and they say, nope, that was a late stunt by the defense. That's offside. So that simmers down the crowd just a little bit, but this place is in an absolute frenzy. And what does Noah Fifita do? Noah Fifita sits in the pocket, takes the drop back, sees a man in his face, because there were men in his face all night. People absolutely crashing down on him. He took a Warriors amount of hits tonight and drops a perfect ball in the bucket of Devin Hyatt. Biggest catch of Devin Hyatt's career. A huge one. That was 41 yards right down the middle. Perfect post pattern for Hyatt. And I don't know how many other quarterbacks in the country complete that pass. Certainly not one that's 5'9" on a good day, as Noah Fifita is. And boy, he just saw the play, read it perfectly, took one right in the ankle and foot area, got up, hobbled, but absolutely dropped it in the bucket. That was a huge play. That turned the heads of everybody that was watching Big 12 After Dark right there. And then the third down play, the 3rd and 11 pass, right, Noah Fifita rolling out to the right sideline and throwing an absolute dot to Kean Burnett for a 23-10 lead. I think a lot of people knew at that point that this game was almost pretty well in Arizona's hands. The defense made sure of that. The defense was just so impressive all day. And I talked a little bit about the defensive individual stats, but let's talk about the total stats overall, because they held Utah to 84 rushing yards in this game. 19 first downs, sure, but 6 of 15 on third downs, 0 of 4 on fourth downs, and 5.3 yards per play. 2.9 yards per rush, and 2 of 4 in the red zone. That is super impressive. Utah had 1 fumble through 2 picks. Arizona had just 1 turnover in the game. That was a Noah Fifita interception in the end zone. But my goodness, Arizona's defense showed up and showed out today. And it was this defensive backroom, especially after the first half loss of Trayden Stukes, coming together and deciding, you know what? We are not letting Dorian Singer beat us anymore. We're not letting the former teammate, the former Arizona Wildcat teammate, beat us. Now, he had an unbelievable game. Singer, 9 catches, 155 yards, but did not find the end zone. And that's important. Brant Kuithe was not going to beat them anymore in the second half. 5 catches for 53 yards for him, but pretty quiet in the second half. This Arizona defense bore down, and they knew that they had to step up and win this game for Arizona. An absolute statement for Dwayne Aquina's defense, a statement for this team, and a statement for this program. Let's talk a little bit about the offense. The balance was better than it's been in a long time. And I'm talking mostly about the run game. Kendrick Risano, I mean, what a game for him. 7 carries for 73 yards, showed a ton of bursts. The Ole Miss transfer was able to bounce it outside. And this is such a tough Utah run defense. This is such a brutally tough Utah run defense, and they ran right through him. Quali Conley, 14 carries for 72 yards. Speedy Luke, 1 carry for 12 yards, but he was bigger out of the backfield, 2 catches for 5 yards. I mean, Speedy Luke played a big role in this game, got probably more run than he got at Kansas State. I was calling for that all week. I think it was important for him to get that, and they just really spread it around a lot better. And the receiving was so important. How about this? The Kean Burnett game. Burnett was everywhere, made every catch, just had an incredible game at tight end. And this is what we wanted to see out of the Servite grad. This is what we wanted to see out of what we have considered the 4th member of the Servite crew behind Noah Fifita, Teteroa McMillan, and Jacob Manu. Kean Burnett showed up tonight. Kean Burnett showed he can be a star tight end in this league, and he certainly did it. He certainly outplayed, I think, a tight end that is an NFL draft prospect in Brant Kuithe. You know, Kean Burnett showed exactly what he is to those scouts in Salt Lake City tonight. And I don't know how many scouts were in the press box tonight out there at that stadium in Salt Lake, but my goodness, if you're a scout, you are licking your chops over Kean Burnett, especially after what you saw tonight. So if he continues this ascension, that's fantastic. Quali Conley got involved in the passing game, 2 receptions for 14 yards. Devin Hyatt with that huge 41-yard catch. Chris Hunter had a nice reception in the first half. Jeremiah Patterson, his 1 catch went for a touchdown. I've been calling for the slot guy to get more involved. He did. Overall, 8 different players for Arizona caught a pass. And that's what this offense has been missing. Noah Fafita, not throwing the ball too many times, 19 for 31, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 129.5 rating. It's a pretty good rating, and it's pretty accurate. Fafita was pretty awesome in this game. Like I said, spreading it around, 8 different receivers. Obviously, T-Mac was going to be his number one target, but only 6 catches, and he was pretty much done with that in the third quarter. So no over-reliance on T-Mac, which was great to see. 8 different receivers, 161 rushing yards on 6 different rushers, 30 overall rushing attempts. That includes, I guess, 4 sacks, but so 26 overall rushing attempts as a team. I just think this balance is exactly what Dino Babers was working on all fall camp, the Arizona offensive coordinator, trying to find with this team. And I think they found it tonight in the most key spot. And they were patient and they were playing to their own strengths against a defense that constantly forces teams to play out of their strengths. That's what Utah does really well as a team, as a program, and as a defense. Kyle Whittingham's defenses are always tough. They threw the house at Noah. They threw the house at this team. Blitz after blitz after blitz, trying to intimidate, using that crowd behind them at home. And Arizona did not flinch. Which brings me to the overall impact of this game. Goodness gracious, Arizona will be a top 20 team when the rankings come out on Monday. That was such an impressive performance. And if the AP voters stayed up late to watch this one, they will see every bit of a 23-10, a 2-score Arizona victory on the road at Utah. Now, on my preview podcast on Friday, I thought that Arizona would actually go in and win this game. I thought they would be able to take advantage of some of their strengths and make them some of Utah's weaknesses, but I did not see a complete defensive domination like this. I did not see the offense making every play and recapturing some of that 2023 7-game win streak to end the season Arizona Magic. This is a team that's now 1-0 in Big 12 play. And tell me a team that right now looks better in Big 12 play. Iowa State struggled most of the day with Houston. They had a tough out with the Cougars on the road, and Houston's probably the worst team in the Big 12. In fact, let me check real quick because I think Iowa State won that game, but I want to make sure because I don't want to give bad information right here. Iowa State did win that game 20-0, a shutout on the road at Houston, but it was 3-0 late in the third quarter of that game. So certainly a less than impressive performance from Iowa State today. Kansas State already took a loss in the Big 12 last week in Provo, Utah, so that's important. And Arizona sits at the top of the Big 12 standings with a 1-0 record. And even though they've already lost to Kansas State, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter. And in the grand scheme of things, that might have been better for this team and for this program to see exactly what they needed to work on, what they needed to change, what they needed to evolve about this team and this program and this coaching staff. A wake-up call after 9 straight wins. And that's what they showed tonight. They showed the ability to go on the road and beat a top 10 team. Arizona, 23-10 over number 10 Utah. You got to be ecstatic right now if you're a Wildcat fan. This is a night to celebrate in Tucson, celebrate wherever you are in Arizona, anywhere on the West Coast, anywhere in the country that you're listening to the Bleav in Arizona podcast, because the Wildcats just went on the road and dominated a top 10 team. If you dug Arizona's grave 2 weeks ago, time to dig out of it. Time to dig out of it, because this is now a team that is firmly in the mix for the Big 12's college football playoff berth. We could see Arizona playing meaningful championship football in January. And if they win the Big 12 conference, I remind you, they very likely will have an automatic bye into the Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal. And can you imagine all the red and blue adorning State Farm Stadium in Glendale for a Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal? For Arizona against probably a team from the SEC or the Big Ten? Sounds good to me. Sounds fun to me. It sounds like something that this program has been waiting for a long time. And look, the last 2 weeks, people felt snake bitten. People felt down. People felt kicked. They were down on the coaching staff. Some of those same feelings came up in January when Jedd Fisch unceremoniously left for Washington. Well, Arizona fans, what happened this weekend? Jed Fish just lost to Rutgers, and Arizona beat a top 10 team on the road. But it only matters unless you build on it. The Wildcats back at home next week against Texas Tech for the first time in almost a month. The Big 12 home opener against the Red Raiders, an 8 p.m. local time kick in Tucson. That should be a fun one down there at Arizona Stadium. Texas Tech looks pretty good so far. They put up a lot of points in the first few games of the season and already have a win over ASU under their belt. So that'll be another big test for Arizona, but boy, they passed their first official Big 12 test with flying colors. And in the Big 12 era, as a Big 12 school against Big 12 schools, Arizona has a 1-0 record. That's got to feel great if you're a Wildcats fan. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Bleav in Arizona podcast. The instant reaction to the Wildcats' 23-10 win over 10th-ranked Utah. Quick reminder to please subscribe to the podcast over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts. And subscribe to me, Matt Reynoldson, on my YouTube page at Matt_Reynoldson. That's it for me tonight. We'll be back a little bit early next week to have more reaction from this one and preview Texas Tech. For now, have a great rest of your weekend and bear down.